This is Rome. I've come to the church of San Pietro in Vincoli to take a look at a particular sculpture by Michelangelo. This church is where the tomb of Julius II ended up. It was originally planned to be a 3-story high building with over 40 life-size sculptures, and it ended up being a panel on a wall with 3 sculptures by Michelangelo. I'm here to look at one of them. During the 40 years it took to complete this tomb, Michelangelo's plan for it changed 5 times, but in that time, so did his ideas about sculpture. Michelangelo had spent his life creating a race of superhuman figures, and the tomb for Julius II was originally supposed to be adorned by 20 so-called captives and another 18 so-called victories. But by 1545, Michelangelo, now 70 years old, had begun to change his ideas about sculpture. He replaced the 2 captives for the tomb with 2 figures from the Bible, Rachel and Leah. I was particularly interested in Leah, and while I was studying her, I noticed that her gown is peculiarly bunched up at her waist. This knot of cloth has been commented on by others who recognize it as symbolic of Leah's fertility. But this is more than just a nod to her fertility. This is an abstract, but nevertheless anatomically accurate vagina. Now, you don't have to go this far in indicating a vagina if you are using cloth. Bernini used it quite a bit, and none too subtly. Cloth in and of itself tends to form folds that are suggestive. Sometimes designers make deliberate use of this. Sometimes the effort to cover up the female body backfires. Sometimes the message is really hammered home. Western artists have traditionally had a hard time dealing with female anatomy. They prefer to ignore the problem. Hindu sculptors don't seem to have had the same difficulties. Michelangelo's figure of Dawn is set pretty much at eye level, so he had to follow the convention of pretending that there was no anatomy between a woman's legs. But there is, and he knew it, and the question is, how did he come by this knowledge? We've been told that he never worked with female models, but we know that he dissected corpses. We've been led to believe that there was something clandestine or illegal about this. There really wasn't. Anatomical dissection had been around since the University of Bologna legalized it in 1400, although there it was used principally for forensic analysis of crimes rather than pure scientific investigation. Michelangelo found his subjects in the morgue of the Church of Santo Spirito in Florence. They were probably beggars, thieves, prostitutes, and other people who didn't have a family to claim them. We're also told that this is pretty grisly work, and it probably was. The tradition has been that Leonardo da Vinci was seeking scientific knowledge, while Michelangelo was simply seeking information on how bones and muscles work. But I think we can disprove that. It seems that both men were interested in the entirety of the human body. And one of the functions of the human body is reproduction. It seems both men were interested in how that works as well, although Da Vinci doesn't seem to have had all that clear an idea of what was going on down there. In addition, there's always been kind of a prurient interest in how women work, especially when the genitals are constantly closed or hidden. With his figure of Night, Michelangelo conveniently places a bundle of poppies between Night's legs. He sticks an owl there too. But there's something interesting about the figure of Night. Her breasts are often commented on as not looking real. Well, they look real if these are cancerous breasts, and the physician Michael Stark has demonstrated that indeed Michelangelo had seen cancerous breasts, understood them to be lethal, and included one on the figure of Night to emphasize her role as a dying figure. Where would he have seen breast cancer? He would have seen it in the morgue of Santa Spirita. Artists have always used females as models. In Michelangelo's time, prostitutes would have been the quickest source of a female model. It was not then, as it is now, regarded as something a decent woman would do. As an artist, I can say, thank God for the women who have been willing to pose for me. And I suspect all artists feel the same. The entire sex act has been a subject of interest, fascination, a kind of weird revulsion, and something hidden. The Greek model for female eroticism survived well into the 20th century. It wouldn't be until the sculptor Rodin that we would start to see female anatomy expressed. So we have two models for Michelangelo, neither of which comport to the conventions. Either he hired female models, or he examined female corpses and showed interest in female anatomy, which we are told repeatedly that he did not do. And yet here he drives the message home. We have to ask why, and why so thoroughly. Why couldn't he make her simply look pregnant? That was a convention used to suggest female fertility. But either way, we're forced to take a new look at Michelangelo, his sexual habits, his tastes, and his artistic practices. And this entire revisiting of Michelangelo's life and mind comes from a careful examination of a figure that stood in front of us for 500 years. Few people have commented on it because something of the queasiness still exists, even amongst art historians. And in the end, we're faced once again with the question of who exactly was Michelangelo, and what does this mean for our interpretation of his artwork? Are his nudes the expression of mere eroticism, or something much deeper and more complex?